April Martinez hasn't been so hurt and bitter for a very long time. Her heart seemed to be bound by a hoop of sadness and longing. And how did I let myself to be lied to? How did it happen? The girl puzzled over, trying to gather her thoughts together. Of course, it's too late to think about it now, but she really should have been more careful and not trust the man from the street. April was a daughter of wealthy parents, who left her a substantial inheritance. Throughout her rather short life, the girl was waiting for a prince on a white horse, and when he finally appeared, she was over the moon with happiness. Unfortunately, the truth turned out to be much tougher than it seemed at first glance. But Jacob wasn't the first stranger. He was mine beloved and the only one, and he had feelings for me, I know. April persuaded herself, remembering her past. Deep down, she was ready to forgive everything and follow her beloved to the world's end. Yes, only on such a long voyage, Jacob decided to go alone, simultaneously taking all the valuables that she had in her house. He left only a necklace given to her on the occasion of her birthday, luxurious and, for sure, insanely expensive. Has he forgotten? Yeah, he probably forgot, April thought, burning with uncertainty. Sadly, Jacob deliberately left her this particular necklace. April took it to the jeweler, and even before the elderly master opened his mouth, she already knew the answer to her question. The necklace turned out to be a fake and cost absolutely nothing. God, how so? The girl whispered with pain in her voice, addressing what he said to herself. So many tears have been wept out. So much suffering has been endured. April cursed fate for having decided to leg Jacob into her life, and under certain circumstances, she certainly wouldn't let him on her doorstep. But Jacob entered cunningly, like a treacherous spy. Bypassing all prohibitions and constipations, he picked up the key to her with the help of most expensive thing in April's life, her pet, and a real family member, Buddy the cat. Girl lost her parents a long time ago. She never got children and a husband, and therefore her only joy was a milky red cat brought as a kitten, blind and infirm. He considered himself a full-fledged inhabitant of the apartment. He was 5 years old, and April doted on her ginger miracle. The love was mutual and devoted, such as only representatives of the feline family have. As soon as footsteps were heard on the threshold, Buddy rushed headlong to meet the hostess, gently purring and mewing. On that ill-fated day, as luck would have it, there was good sunny weather, and April decided to walk her pet, let him run around the lawn, chasing butterflies. The girl thought, opening the front door. That's how it turned out. But he disappeared when April was distracted with answering the phone. But when the hostess began to call the pet, the cat, to a great chagrin, ignored her call. He was here just now, and now he fallen through the ground. The girl repeated searching the yard and the surrounding area. She even climbed into the attic, but Buddy was gone. That's fine, he'll have a walk and come back, the neighbors said indifferently, not understanding April's emotion experience. 3 days passed, and still there was no red Fluffy. Suddenly, in the evening, there was a knock on the door. Opening the door, April was stunned. A tall young man stood on the threshold with a portable pet bag on one hand and the cake in the other. April's joy knew no bounds when she saw the muzzle of her beloved cat. Hello, are you the Buddy's owner? Your address was listed on the collar. Oh yes, it's me. Thank you for taking care of my pet. Don't stand in the doorway. Come in quickly. The girl fussed, embarrassed by the look of the stranger's piercing gray eyes. When Buddy was released, he immediately rushed to the bowl of food, and regardless of his majestic breed, began greedily eating everything that was given to him. Poor boy, he starved, April said carefully, withers and scratching behind his ears. Oh no, I fed him 3 times a day. The stranger hastened to assure the girl. While April was making tea, it turned out in conversation that her unexpected benefactor's name was Jacob, and also that he is a former police officer who was forced to leave the service after being injured during the arrest of a criminal. Jacob turned out to be an interesting conversationalist, and April, unbeknownst to herself, got carried away with the conversation. "And what are you thinking of doing now?" the girl asked. "Now I'm actively interested in business. I plan to connect my activity with trade." April's gaze warmed noticeably, and a note of trust appeared in her voice. "You know, we kind of colleagues, Jacob. I have 2 cafes in the center, and a small auto repair shop on the outskirts." "Good for you. You didn't waste any time. What an empire you build," the young man said admiringly. The evening flew by unnoticed, and Jacob began to get ready to go home. At parting, already at the door, he refused the reward offered to April, asking in return for her phone number. The girl thought for a second, but after overcoming doubts, she still gave the cherished figures. The next day, she was looking forward for the call, but to her chagrin, the phone was silent. He didn't call after that either. The girl was already completely desperate when the call rang in the evening. April grabbed the phone and, barely restraining her excitement, answered. "Hello?" "April, it's me, Jacob. What are you doing tonight? Let's go to a restaurant. You'll unwind. Pleasant atmosphere won't hurt me either." April happily bit her lip, and having left Jacob in suspense for a second or two, agreed. Dinner was just wonderful. Flowers, champagne, and of course candles. The former policeman turned out to be a perfect suitor, gallant, charming, and witty. It's been a long time since April felt so good, easy, and cozy. For a moment, it seemed to her that she had been waiting for Jacob all her life. The young man, in turn, unequivocally made it clear about the seriousness of his attentions. The evening smoothly flowed into the night, hot and sensual, with a hint of passion on the crumpled sheet, and the barely perceptible smell of sweat in the room of a roadside hotel. The romance spun rapidly. Jacob's honeymoon onslaught literally stunned April, who was longing for a male affection. Only Buddy was the mute witness to the rapidly developing relationship. He looked at April with an intelligent and an attentive gaze, as if he wanted to say something or warn her. Buddy's owner seemed to have been replaced. She flew as if on wings, tirelessly looking in the mirror and singing a tune only she understood. Jacob, on the other hand, was getting more and more serious every day. He walked around gloomier than a goose. And one of the evening, together with April, in a voice breaking from tension, he told her about his problem. "You see, honey, an important computer supply from across the Atlantic is being disrupted, and the bank does not give a loan in any way. This is the deal of the century. Having turned it, we will become rich, fabulously rich." April was moved by the word "we" in this phrase, so she, having discarded all doubts, readily offered her help. "Jacob, dear, what's the problem? Let me help you. Is the amount so big? Are your computers golden or something?" The girl said on a joking tone. "Oh, April, I need a lot of money. You have no idea how much." Jacob whispered bitterly in his voice. "Well, how much? Tell me. We're close," the girl exclaimed impatiently. After Jacob's 5-figure sum, April was literally speechless. Even Buddy was alert, raising his ears questioningly. The girl in love did not hesitate for long. After weighing all the pros and cons, and then throwing love into the scales, outweighing all doubts and fears at all times, she agreed to help. After withdrawing funds from all accounts, and simultaneously borrowing money, she laid out the necessary amount in front of Jacob. In the heat of the fever, she did not notice how greedily and rapaciously the eyes of the young businessman flashed. That evening was unforgettable. Wine, candles, and lots of love. And the next morning, a retired policeman, and now a newly minted businessman, disappeared. Along with him, the money and everything more or less valuable in April's house disappeared. The unfortunate girl began to call all the numbers in a row, but the one that belonged to Jacob was silent. The girl went to his house, but an unknown woman opened the door. She said that the guest disappeared in an unknown direction, owing money for housing. "Would you be so kind as to pay the rent for him?" the landlady asked. In response to this, April absent-mindedly, without counting, shoved several bills into the woman's hands and hurried to leave such an unpleasant place. Tears gushed from her eyes. The poor girl understood that most likely she would not see Jacob again. At the same time, Buddy never left April's side, as if trying to ease her suffering and feeling guilty about what had happened. After all, he was the one who could not resist the temptation and went to the smell of valerian, which Jacob so generously watered the path going behind the house. Thus he spent 3 days in captivity in the rented dwelling of the young rascal. Unfortunately, it was Buddy who could not warn the owner from a rash step. Over time, April licked her wounds, but her heart turned out to be hopelessly broken for many months. Money can always be returned or earned, but sincere feelings never. Fate pitied the girl, and she did not find out that she was not the first in the list of women deceived by Jacob. He had looked after her for a long time, and still did not know how to approach her. The case and April's sympathetic heart helped. But life punished the young swindler, and after committing another scam, he was detained by law enforcement officers. The love of new passion turned out to be not so naive and pure, and therefore she immediately turned into police. It is unlikely that a successful fraudster Jacob could have expected that for the first time in several months he would see April deceived by him. The fact is that police officers called everyone who suffered from Jacob's fraudulent actions to the station. But, looking intently into the eyes of her abuser, April shook her head negatively. "No, I do not know this person. I must have been robbed by another criminal," the young woman replied and covered her eyes with her hands. The policemen looked at each other and shrugged indifferently. Leaving the walls of the police station, April, for the first time in the several months, felt free. In order to put Jacob behind bars, the police have enough testimony from another victims, and April, walking down the street, felt like a winner. After all, at home, a loving cat was waiting for her as before, and this meant that life goes on. And the dog strip will definitely be replaced by a light one, which will certainly give happiness and peace of mind.